Well, okay, so that's kind of a little bit of a synopsis of kind of your life, but let's talk about, you have a pretty in-depth knowledge about the history of Northwood's tennis program, which is a pretty big deal. So take me back to like as far back as you know.
Well, as far back as to the beginning of the tennis program, the Hoxie Tennis House was built by the Dow Chemical Company for Gene Hoxie. And Gene Hoxie was a tennis coach from Hamtramck, Michigan, that her pupils won 300 national titles. And she was the coach at Hamtramck. They won a whole 14 or 15 or 16 years in a row. They won the Class A state tournament. And she was one of the most recognized tennis coaches in the world. And her most famous pupils, Peaches Barkowitz was a top 10 player in the world.
You had mentioned that to me before, and the movie about Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs. They actually have her in that because she was one of the first few that played on the WTA or the Women's Professional Tour.
They formed it.
Yeah.
She was one of the 8 or 9 ladies that started the professional tour, and Billie Jean King was in that group, and so was Peaches Barkowitz, and then her sister was Plums Barkowitz, who was on the professional tour also.
Got a thing for fruit, I guess.
And so I think what happened was that Gene Hoxie, her husband, was a chemist, and somehow Northwood got to know him, and then through him they got to know Gene Hoxie. And the early history of Northwood, they were very good at attracting famous people for one reason or another, whether it was automotive or curriculum or kind of a famous type person, and to bring positive things to Northwood. And I think they saw this in Gene Hoxie. So when she retired at Hamtramck, Michigan, the Dow Chemical Company built the Hoxie Tennis House on our campus for Gene Hoxie.
Wow.
And so when she retired, she came up and she was the coach of the men's team. We did not have a women's team, and she coached the men's team. And one of the stories that I know is true, because I've talked to Chuck Brainerd, who was on the team, and someone else that was at Northwood at the time. They needed to raise about $30,000 or $40,000 to take this trip to South America to play Davis Cup teams.
Right, so the Northwood team, Northwood College team.
The Northwood College team was going to South America to play Davis Cup teams.
Yeah.
And so she got on the phone and she made one call. And that one call happened to be someone at Dow Chemical. Okay. And the next day they had the money. They had the money, and she was that influential. You just didn't say no to Gene Hoxie. And so they went to South America. I think they were down there for 3 or 4 weeks and played a bunch of Davis Cup teams and everything, and had a great time. And that's the way she operated. I mean, it was on a big scale. Everything was on a big scale with Gene Hoxie. And so the number one player on that Northwood team, his name was Chuck Brainerd, and he was one of the little Hoxie kids that grew up with Gene Hoxie, and he won the Orange Bowl tennis tournament, which was the top 3 junior tournaments in the world, in the absolute whole world. Chuck won that. And so he was during the 18s, he was ranked number 3 in the nation in the 18s and under. And he could have gone any place in the world to play college tennis. Any place would have loved to have Chuck Brainerd. He went to Michigan State. His first year, he won the Big Ten championship going away as a freshman. And Gene Hoxie came up to Midland, and lo and behold, Chuck Brainerd transfers to Northwood.
Of course, logical transfer.
So
Big Ten school to.
So anyway, Chuck came up, and he was probably obviously our most famous tennis player, and he after he won the Big Ten championships and was a number 3 ranked junior in the country, came to Northwood to play tennis.
Well, you said I got a chance to meet Chuck, which was great.
Yeah.
You know, he shares all that history, which is so cool. But I think one of the funny stories that you talked about, which actually the Northwood program had a little bit of an influence on building the tennis center, right?
Oh yeah, what happened was tennis. Once the Hoxie Tennis House was built, and the whole town couldn't wait to get out there to play indoor tennis, and so they had it open. The tennis team would practice in the afternoons, and then the public would just converge out to the tennis center. I mean, it only had 3 courts, and it was going till like 11:30, 12 o'clock every night.
Wow.
You know, the students could get out there once in a while. But boy, I tell you, the public just couldn't get enough of it. And so pretty soon, I think the Dow Chemical Company saw that, you know, the demand has way outgrown the Hoxie Tennis House, and that's what Paul Orphis was the spearhead to build the Midland Community Tennis Center. And so that's how that came about, though. And so we were kind of relieved when they built the tennis center, because that way we could get more court time for our own tennis facility.
Remember you told the story about how Paul, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that he wanted to get a court time but couldn't.
Yeah.
So he's like, forget this.
Yeah. That probably didn't set too well.
No.
I think that was a guiding force to get that facility, and that's when tennis just exploded out of Midland, as far as. And then you know, I can't remember if they started with 4 or 6 courts, and then they started building out and out and out, and then pretty soon they built the annex, and it became one of obviously the best tennis facilities in the country. And I can't remember what year it was that the Midland Tennis Center was, and the city of Midland was voted the best.
2009.
Best tennis town
USA.
In the USA. I mean, that was an unbelievable award, and that was given to Midland at the U.S. Open, which is really a big deal.
Yeah,
I think. So that's quite a history as far as tennis in the city of Midland. You know, in the city, the tennis teams have won, you know, particularly Dow has won many state championships and had many state individual champions and everything. Austin, who came to play for me and everything, but it's been a long history of tennis players coming out of the city of Midland.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that tennis center, we're so fortunate to have that.
Oh.
That, you know, we go around to different tournaments, and nothing against them, but if we have a regional tournament. I remember last year I was taking kids around to 4 different sites for 4 different players, and I was thinking, man, if this was in Midland, everything would be at one place, and you don't realize how fortunate you are until you go somewhere else.
No one. There's clubs that are probably maybe not quite as big as Midland indoors. There's clubs that have a lot of indoor and outdoor, but no club, I think, has the combination of indoor-outdoor facilities that the Midland Tennis Center. It's just phenomenal. And they keep adding on. You know, they built the, they've got clay courts out there now, you know, for the older folks that can't play on the hard courts. And they have the Orphis Pavilion and everything, and they're constantly doing new things to, you know, keep it nice and fresh out there and everything. It's still one of the very best clubs in the country, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So what happened with the Northwood program after Jean?
So after Jean, she died tragically on campus, and so I think they had a temporary coach for either that year or the year after, and then they had Jim Swift he came up, he was on the tennis team at the University of Michigan, came up and was the coach for about 4 or 5 years, and I think took the team to the national tournaments and everything, and then he left, and then I came in 1974.
There's been 3 coaches in the last 50 years.
50 years, yeah.
Well, 4 now. I guess.
So not 4 now, yeah. 20 years.
Yeah.
So go, it's all yours.
Yeah, right. Well, so it's keeping with kind of the trend of the history of the program, talk about, you talked about Chuck Brainerd, but who are some of the other pretty influential players for the program?
Well, as far when let's see, I've had 3 players that were national players of the year, and I have first and foremost I have to mention Marek Kolar. That was on the what year was that that he won? We got to the Final Four that year, but Marek Kolar was the most decorated athlete in the history of Northwood. He was a 4-time academic All-American, grade A student, 4-time All-American, National Player of the Year. Think of that.
Yeah.
I mean, to have that entire package in one person is just unbelievable. And I think he beat 4 or 5 number 1 players in the country during his 4 years at Northwood. And so he was the first player that played for me that was the National Player of the Year. And then the second player was Teddy Mabuno from France. That he was the most gifted athlete that probably ever had Northwood. If you looked at him, he was such a specimen. He could have played football or anything. I mean, he was just chiseled, just absolutely chiseled. And what a great athlete. And so he played against Roger Federer in doubles back in France. It tells you his background, the level of play that he was playing at. And so he was the National Player of the Year. And then we had a lady from Germany, Karina Kempfer, who was the National Player of the Year. And in the European Championships, before the year she came to Northwood, she went 3 sets with Kim Clijsters, who was the number 1 player in the world.
At that time?
Well, she became the number 1 player in the world about 2 or 3 years later. And Karina lost to her in 3 sets. And so Karina was our 3rd National Player of the Year. And to have 3 players from a school in mid-Michigan area in the Rust Belt up in the Snow Belt, to have 3 players from one team being the National Player of the Year was astounding.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it.
Yeah, the players down south are normally the ones that are playing all year.
I mean, everyone wants to play down south. You know, all the European, all the South Americans, they all want to go to Florida to play, and you know that's where most of the teams. That's where all the national championships are. Most of the teams they're competing are down the Florida area.
Yeah.
Honestly, you know, there was some out west, but the southeast became the center of Division II tennis.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 players that really elevated Northwood as far as what we were doing, and also, you know, on a national scale that, you know, helped us become very prominent on a national scale.
I remember a funny thing you said about, was it one of the local newspaper sports reporters, like Fred Kelly or I forget who it was, but you were saying that it was a bummer because the only time that it was ever news about the tennis team was that when they lost.
I don't know if I mentioned that. Well, we had a string, Mike, where we won 20 straight GLIAD championships. And I mean, it was.
Were all the teams that are competitive now, were they all in there, like Grand Valley and Ferris and?
Oh yeah, there were a couple. Ferris was better than what they are right now. But basically back then Ferris was the competition. You know, they had a PTM program over there. indoor facility, indoor tennis facility, a commercial club that they own. And so they had great teams too, and there was no love lost between Ferris and Northwood, I can tell you that. And they were wars for those 20 years, but we always managed to beat them, and they hated us. I mean, they absolutely hated Northwood. And there were years when they had better players than we did, and we just somehow found a way to beat them. And I think it was because they hated us so much.
Right.
They detested Northwood so much that it affected them when they were on the tennis court.
And there's something to getting used to winning. Like if you have continued to have success.
Winning builds winning. Oh, I'm telling you have that winning attitude, and you have that winning attitude on a team, and it goes down from generation to generation, and that's what happened for those 20 years. And we were not only winning GLIAC championships, we were a top 10 team every single year. You know, during that time, we wound up third in the nation. We were about 3 games away from playing for the national championship one year, and we wound up 4th one year. And so we were in the hunt for national championships that year, not in addition to just the GLIAC. You know, that was a start. That wasn't the finish. That was the ultimate goal.
But yeah, we got to get that. It's one step along the journey.
One step on the journey, yeah. It was an important step, and the first step, and it was very important. But also, to get in that national tournament and get into the Final Four and play with all the big boys from the South. That was, I remember one time we went down to Florida. And we played Rollins on the spring trip, and they were the #1 team in the country. They destroyed us in doubles. This is Kemper's during the years that we were very, very good. We had a lot of Germans on the team that year, and they destroyed us in doubles, and they were laughing at us, and they were openly giggling at us and making fun of us. And pretty soon we started chipping away and winning a match here, winning a match there. And finally the match came down to Tomáš Menik, Czech Republic player, playing number 5 singles. Won the first set, lost the second. And by that time, all the players were around the court, and they were yelling, screaming at us and everything. Tomáš won 7-5 in the third set to beat the #1 team in the nation. And let me tell you, the only thing I told those players is to get on that bus, because we're going home. We got what we wanted overnight. They wanted to fight.
Really?
They wanted to start a rumble with us. And I said, just get in the van. We're going home. We got what we wanted.
Probably more of them.
It was unbelievable. And that was a year we wound up number 3 in the nation. 2 or 3 top 10 teams in the country that on our way to the 3rd place finish. Well, a couple years before that, we went down to South Carolina to play Lander University, who won 5 national championships in a row.
Wow.
They won 5 straight national championships in a row. Unbeatable. And we went down and we played 3 or 4 matches down there. We played, I think, the first or second match, we played Lander on their home courts. Mark Kolar won 6-4 in the 3rd set to win that match 5-4. And we beat the streak. We beat them with the first team to beat them in 5.5 years.
Wow.
And they were the #1 team in the country when we beat them. And Mark Kohler won that match 6-4. I think it was 6-4 in the 3rd set. So there were so many moments like that, through the years, that huge wins, big wins, and everything. And the spirit on the teams was just unbelievable. And all along, these kids were not only great tennis players. I mean, they were great students too. We've had a history of, I think every year that they've ever had the GPA award, we've won that, and But that started long before they started that GPA award, that the kids were just great student athletes too. And so it was, you can't fathom that. Thinking back when I first started at Northwood, that you're going to have a career like that, you can't think of that.
Yeah.
That's not even something you even think about. And I don't know how it happened, but it did.
Well, you mentioned a lot of those moments. Are there some other like really moments that maybe not necessarily winning, it could be, but moments that you were really proud of the program or that were particularly memorable?
What I remember most about the middle years was going out to the tennis center every single day, and these players would bust their butts so hard for 2.5, 3 hours every single day, and it was so much fun, and we worked so hard. We worked hard, and what I remember a lot of, and Mike Woody was the head pro at the tennis center for quite a few years, and he used to come out with us, and Mike was a very accomplished player. Boy, was he competitive. And he would play, at that time, he's a little bit older, so I'd have him play one of the lower level players, and he was so competitive. Man, and Mike Woody is the manager of the tennis center. He's the head pro, and when he'd get mad, that racket would start flying sometimes. And I'm telling you, he was so competitive. It used to be so much fun to watch him play the other players, and then he was a great doubles player, a really good doubles player, and he could play the top doubles teams that we had with someone, one of his partners, another Northwood kid, and those were so much fun to watch and everything. And but the kids, I remember just working so hard at the tennis center. And back then, we didn't play too many matches before we went to Florida. We worked from January and February, those 6-7 weeks, we worked so hard to get ready to go down to Florida. Every disadvantage, those teams had already played, 10 matches and playing on their home courts and everything. And we went down there during those various times and did very, very well against them. But boy, I tell you, these kids worked hard, for those 8 weeks or so. And that's one thing I really, really remember is how hard the kids, and how much fun we had. I mean, to them, working hard was fun.
Yeah.
The harder they worked, the more fun they have. And at some point in time, probably when I started really pushing them, maybe it wasn't quite so much fun.
The process along the way, not necessarily the
result. I held their feet to the fire though, and but they wanted to play tennis. They just love tennis, and I think that's the one thing. If you want to be a champion, you got to love to play. You got to love to practice. You got to love to get better and everything. And those are life lessons that all those kids through those years, all the years, have done so well outside of tennis when they graduate and everything. And I'm just astounded at how successful all these players are when they leave Northwood. And I think it's like your parents, your parents, you look up to them and everything, but as far as salary and the things that they're doing, the next generation always steps up a little bit. Well, these players have really stepped up. I'm just so proud of what they've, where they're at right now and everything.
Well,